Experts agree that slashing methane would be a major step to stay on track with the Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Methane is a highly potent greenhouse gas. It traps much more heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide, about 83 times more heat in its first 20 years. So cutting methane emissions is the best way to limit warming in the short term. And cutting methane will have a massive impact on U.S. climate goals. Reducing methane is a central piece of the Biden administration's climate commitments. The administration is proposing to regulate methane emissions comprehensively in separate federal rules proposed by 3 different agencies. Each rule responds to a mandate from Congress, which requires each agency to focus on a different piece of the methane puzzle. Let's look at how the rules fit together and how they can build on each other to fully leverage the advanced technologies now available that can help to detect and reduce methane emissions. In the United States, oil and gas production is the largest industrial source of methane, contributing about a third of our economy's methane emissions. And methane is the main component of natural gas. As natural gas travels from the wellhead to the consumer, methane can escape in several ways, including unintentional leaks from equipment like valves, intentional venting for safety reasons, and regular maintenance activities. The oil and gas sector is a vast interconnected system in which different owners and operators own and control different parts. Recent studies using satellites, aerial surveys from planes, drones, and continuous emission monitors show that the U.S. has historically undercounted methane emissions from this sector. These newer technologies can help better identify methane leaks because they allow for frequent and comprehensive monitoring compared to older technology that relies on occasional inspection that's less complete. And of course, identifying leaks is the first step to controlling them. The Biden administration is requiring companies to measure, report, and reduce methane emissions through federal rules issued by the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, and the Pipelines and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA. EPA is doing 3 rulemakings. These include a rule to reduce emissions, which requires oil and gas operators to install control technologies on production equipment and to look for and fix emission leaks. Another rule to update how facilities measure and report their methane emissions, and a rule to implement a new methane waste charge, which Congress adopted to connect the 2 rules just mentioned. This new program creates financial incentives for large facilities to reduce methane emissions and requires operators to pay a charge based on what emissions they measure and report. And EPA is producing a rule to implement that new program. Meanwhile, BLM is proposing a rule for oil and gas facilities on public lands based on a congressional mandate requiring mitigation of the loss of gas through venting, flaring, and leaking on public lands. And finally, PHMSA is proposing a leak detection and repair rule that sets standards for natural gas pipelines to address public safety risks of gas leaks and environmental benefits of reducing methane emissions. Notably, all 3 agencies are hoping to take advantage of rapidly advancing technologies that can help companies better identify leaks, use improved data about the size and frequency of methane emission events to mitigate leaks, and help owners and operators adjust their operations to reduce emissions. A variety of stakeholders want to know how these regulations fit together and understand their implications. Environmental advocates will want to evaluate whether the rules will reduce emissions in the short term and create incentives to drive additional emission reductions in the future. Owners and operators of oil and gas facilities will want to know how each rule impacts their facilities and whether they need to use multiple technology strategies or a single strategy to comply with the different rules. Companies developing new technologies to detect leaks will want to know if their technology can be used for compliance under each rule. And states and federal agencies will need to understand how to assess compliance with the rules and whether they can use advanced technologies for enforcement. The combination of these new regulatory measures and the availability of new cutting-edge technology has created real momentum to reduce methane emissions from the oil and gas sector. As these federal methane rules evolve, it will be important to consider how they can be designed to work together effectively and how they can collectively create incentives to reduce emissions to the greatest degree possible. While each rule must operate according to its own legal framework, the goal is to make sure the rules work well together and foster incentives for owners and operators of oil and gas facilities to detect leaks swiftly and mitigate those leaks effectively. This collaborative effort across the agencies and with all of the stakeholders can contribute significantly to the overall reduction of methane emissions throughout the oil and gas industry. The Environmental and Energy Law Program is collaborating with stakeholders to help in this work. Find out more on the Harvard Law School's Environmental and Energy Law Program Methane Resource page.